Hello, my name is Katie and I'm the general surgery specialist. Today we're going to be in-servicing you on our Endostitch. We use the Endostitch in laparoscopic cases, typically our laparoscopic Nissen fundoplications, and to sew mission on occasion. Let's go ahead and take a look at our handle.
This is the handle of the Endostitch. First, you'll notice that there is writing on this side of the Endostitch. This is the front, and this is important because you'll want the writing facing up when you load the Endostitch. We have the handles, which will be used to clamp the Endostitch around the needle and to load it. You also have these levers, which are used to load the Endostitch, and the surgeon also uses these to toggle back and forth in order to move the Endostitch needle from one side to the other. And then we also have this black button that we'll use as a pinching mechanism to help unload the Endostitch needle. This is the back side of the Endostitch handle. You will notice that there is no writing, and you will still see the black button. Again, we will use a pinching mechanism to release that button and unload the Endostitch. This is the end of the Endostitch where we will load our needle. A couple things of note here is that you have the jaws of the Endostitch, and you also have these little end pieces that we'll be referring to as the rabbit ears. When you squeeze the handles of the Endostitch, you'll notice that the jaws close and that the rabbit ears are still visible. This means that the jaws close but the needle is not yet loaded. When the needle is loaded, you will see the rabbit ears disappear from the end of the Endostitch. On the other side of the tip of the Endostitch, there's a small divot here, and that's important to note because you will align this divot with the Endostitch cartridge in order for it to snap into place to load the needle. So let's go ahead and load the Endostitch. So here we have an Endostitch cartridge that we will open up. And you'll notice on the end of this Endostitch, we have the nubbin that snaps into the divot on the back of our Endostitch. So we'll line up our Endostitch on the cartridge and push until you hear the click. And then we'll squeeze the handles to close the jaws of the Endostitch around the needle. So once you squeeze the handles of your Endostitch, we're going to load the needle by pulling these green levers towards the end of the Endostitch. So using two fingers, I'm going to keep these levers completely level and pull them towards the end of the Endostitch to load the needle. So you can see that the jaws of the Endostitch are closed. The rabbit ears are no longer visible, meaning that the Endostitch needle is loaded onto the handle. In order to remove the cartridge from the tip of the Endostitch, you will peel back like a banana and cut to the appropriate length, which is usually about 10 centimeters. Now I'll show you how to toggle the needle back and forth between the jaws of the Endostitch. In order to toggle the needle between each side of the Endostitch jaw, you will clamp the handles and then push the lever one direction and it will move the needle on the end of the Endostitch, and then the other direction will cause the needle to attach to the opposite side of the Endostitch. So here you'll see that the needle is loaded on one end of the Endostitch based on the way that we toggle our levers on the handle. Now I'm going to go ahead and squeeze the jaws together and toggle the levers the opposite direction, and the needle will move to the other side of the Endostitch. Now let's show you how to unload the Endostitch. In order to unload the Endostitch, the first thing you'll do is you will squeeze the levers together to close the jaws of the Endostitch. Next, I want you to make sure that your levers are equal and level on each side, just like so. And then in order to disengage the needle from the tip of the Endostitch, you will use a pinching mechanism on the black buttons on each side of the endo stitch. You'll pinch those together and push them towards the tip of the endo stitch. You'll notice that the rabbit ears become visible again. This means that your endo stitch needle is unloaded, and you simply release the handles and then remove your endo stitch needle using a cryo or other safety device. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me or one of our educators for further instructions.